I'm so happy to be back. You know, I love the British Isles so much. When I left, I said, you know, I'm going from one home to another. And so I want to say, though, how happy I am to be back with you, just to see all of your faces. And you're so good to come home to. So I just want you to know that. So our theme for the whole year is Your Joyous Life, and I'm hoping that you are feeling that more and more and more, because that's every single lesson is about how you can create more joy in your life with the vision of our community, which is awakening personal transformation, and the mission of our community, which is teaching tools for positive change. So we're going to have some of both of that this morning, in addition to some stories about Scotland. So we are moving through, for those of you that have joined us mid-year, we're moving through this book that has conveniently 12 chapters in it, The Happiness Project. And I have written a curriculum that goes for each month. And so many of you are in a book study, but you don't have to be in a book study. You can join us mid-year, and those curricula are all over there on the education table and the little stand with the colored pages, a different color for each month. So you can catch up with us if you want to. The book is very, very heartfelt in giving you suggestions for how to increase happiness. And all of them are based on spiritual principles. So that's my job, is to show you what the spiritual principle is. So the May theme that we're moving into, or the June theme that we're moving into, is See the Face of God in Others. And I love this photograph because this is an unlikely pair. You know, they're both babies, of course, but a lion and a little child, I think, is so sweet, and it's easy for us to see the face of God there. And whether you're looking at a lion in the outer world or a former baby in the outer world, it's all the face of God. So every single one of you is the face of God. And our goal this month is to deepen friendships. The friendships is the theme in the book. So I want you to know, those of you that are new-ish to this community, that there are friendship groups here that have had meetings that started with a class more than a decade ago. And they keep on meeting because they love each other. And people that go to movies together just because they're friends. And so if you are looking for more friends in your life, this is the place for you to find them. And those of you that have been here for a while and have an opening in your heart for including more, then I encourage you to go up to somebody that you don't know and say, would you like to go to brunch or something like that? Because that's what our goal is this month. And what research shows is that people who have close friends that they can tell their heart to are happier. How many already know this? Yeah, this is kind of a no-brainer month, but it's good. It's good. So, and this is actually a no-brainer talk. This is the title, Do Good and Feel Good. I mean, like, duh. So I want to read you the inspiration for the title, at least. This is from the chapter in the book, and she gives many suggestions about how to increase friendships, and one of them is to be generous. So this is the first paragraph about the generous section. Generous acts strengthen the bonds of friendship, and what's more, studies show that your happiness is often boosted more by providing support to other people than by receiving support yourself. I certainly get more satisfaction out of thinking about good deeds I've done for other people than I do from thinking about good deeds that others have done for me. It's a secret of adulthood. Do good, feel good. So there's the inspiration for the title. But it really is so obvious, right, that when we are kind and useful and forgiving and peaceful and generous, we feel better about ourselves. It's, I don't think anyone could argue with that. But I want to go deeper than that. Of course, that's what I always want to do, is to take the obvious and then go deeper with it. So if something is true, it exemplifies a spiritual principle. And this, of course, this do good, feel good idea exemplifies a spiritual principle, which is this. And that is, that which you give forth comes back to you magnified. So I think both of those sweetheart furballs are giving love, and boy, are they getting it, right? So what you give forth comes back to you magnified. So if you do good, the feeling state that you're going to get comes back to you, and you're going to feel good. It's in kind of a saying that's not found in churches. What goes around comes around. It's so simple and so true, that kindness begets kindness, and conversely, anger or selfishness can never beget kindness naturally. We're going to see how you can change that, but if you put out anger, mostly that's what you get back. So this is the first teaching slide, and it is a story from my travels. So there's two elements here, and I'm going to bring them together for you. There's a sign that says, lambs jump up from nowhere, and then do unto others, which is the first 3 words of the Golden Rule. So this was driving through the borders of Scotland, across a cattle grate, into an area, a big area, where there were no fences. You drive along in the countryside in England, and you've got sheep on the other side of the fences. But this was a lambing area. And so you drive through here, and it's a 1-lane road that goes for a long ways, and everywhere you have moms and babies, everywhere. And so all along the road here, you have this sign with this leaping lamb saying, lambs jump up from nowhere. Meaning, of course, that you have to be very careful and go slow, right? Okay, so I love the image. So the second part of this image is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is the most universal teaching in all spiritual traditions worldwide. It is in Baha'i, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Zoroastrianism, Native spirituality, Taoism, Sikhism, Buddhism, and more. These are 2 of my favorites. One from Islam: do unto all men as you would wish to have done unto you, and reject for others what you would reject for yourselves. That is the teaching of Muhammad. And from Confucius: Tzu Kung asked, is there one principle upon which one's whole life may proceed? The master replied, is it not reciprocity? Is that not such a principle? What you do not yourself desire, do not put before others. So over and over and over in world traditions is this beautiful statement of, what you want done to you, do to others. And the converse is also true. So I want to put these 2 together now and say that because lambs jump up from nowhere, and people can be unconscious at the most inopportune moments expressing bad behavior. Have you ever noticed that? That good treatment is the most important when others have forgotten. So when you think about it, it's easy to respond with kindness when you have kindness given to you. That's the easy part. You do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and if they've already been nice to you, it's pretty easy to be nice back. But the real spiritual power comes when bad behavior jumps up. When you've got somebody that has cut you off on the highway, or somebody that snaps at you, or someone that is unkind to you, or worse, has stolen from you, or really forgotten that they are the face of God, that is the most important time for you to treat them with kindness and to start a new cycle of behavior. Do you see what I mean? When you meet irresponsible, negative, sad, angry, confused behavior with goodness, that has a greater tendency of starting the cycle that will bring world peace. The converse is also true. If you meet them and raise them, their energy, that's not going to bring world peace. It's not going to bring peace to you. So when we begin a new cycle of reciprocal behavior by remembering that bad behavior jumps up out of nowhere just like the lambs do, then it's good for everyone. It's good for everyone. And world peace will come from that and won't come when we forget. So the Buddhist tradition has a really good way of getting us into how we can do this, and it is through their Royal Eightfold Path. I'm going to talk basically about the first four, and the first one begins with right view. Now, right view also means right understanding or right perspective. It's like the genuine come-from place that we have inside. And the work is to have that come-from place be eternal kindness all the time. That it's like living by spiritual principle. That if Wayne Dyer long ago had this great analogy. He said, when you squeeze an orange, either with love or with anger, what you're going to get is orange juice. That is the nature of the orange. And so the same is true from us. If we are squeezed, either with love or with anger, if a stimulus comes at us, without thinking, we give forth what is our natural come-from state. And what the first path in the Royal Path of Buddhism states is that if your perspective is right, then what follows is going to be peaceful. And the perspective that is right stands on spiritual principle. So spiritual principles like love is the universal healer and kindness to all beings supports life on earth. Those are universal principles. And so our work has to do with making that come from place in us, the absolute, most peaceful, and that which corresponds to spiritual principles. So then what happens when that's our natural place, we follow that with right thought. And that's where our philosophy starts, our philosophy of change your thinking, change your life. The Buddhists start a little bit further back, and we can too, saying what we change it to is that which conforms to spiritual principle that supports all life on earth. And when we have that come from place that supports all life on earth, then our thought process, what we think, right thought, is naturally what supports what comes from that. And it supports peace of mind for us as we think those right thoughts. So I want to read to you a little bit about, in this book, which is the section that is, friendship is supported with cutting people slack. That's the section in the book that she's writing about, and which I love, that has to do with right thought. So it goes like this. I tried to remember not to judge people harshly, especially on the first or second encounter. Their actions might not reveal their enduring character, but instead reflect some situation that they find themselves in. Forbearance is a form of generosity. I reminded myself of this resolution when, as I stood calmly on a street corner with my arm outstretched for a taxi, a man came tearing up the street, flung out his arm, and jumped into the cab that, according to all New York City cab tradition, should have been mine. I tried to get indignant about his unforgivable rudeness. Then I thought of all the reasons that a person might be desperate to steal the first taxi he saw. He was rushing to the hospital. He had forgotten to pick up his child at school. I wasn't in any rush. I should cut the guy some slack. Find explanations in charity is a more holy way of saying cut people slack. find explanations in charity instead of getting your back up. And that finding explanations in charity is right thought. So when we remember that lambs do jump up out of nowhere, and at any moment you might run into somebody that's having a bad day, when you have established right thought, you can cut them some slack. And when you do that, right speech, which is the third of the noble paths in Buddhism, naturally comes forth. Now, right speech means that you refrain from seeking to punish with your words or divide, and instead you seek with your words to unify and to bless, which is easy when you come from right thought. So when you come from right thought and then the speech that comes from, I mean, you can imagine that she said to that guy, go ahead, fine, take the cab, without any attitude. When that happens, right action, which is what we're talking about today in the talk, do good and feel good, is the natural thing that comes forth. Doing good leads to happiness and leads to connection and peace and sharing and harmony. And when we manage our thinking, we naturally come to a generosity of our actions. So that's, yep, it all turned out. Okay, good. So when we do this, we are also having our own personal transformation. We are changing from whatever annoyance was our natural state to a place of absolute peace all the time. And we are using the spiritual tools that we're taught. So when we do this, we become a force for good in the world. Now, when we become a force for good in the world, it means that everywhere we go, we are a blessing. We are a blessing to everyone we meet. So, first of all, the world is better because of you when you use these spiritual tools and achieve your own personal transformation. And when we do this, when we have to, it's not like a one-time deal. It's not like you finish foundations class and you've got your certificate and now you know everything that's in the foundations class. It takes constant reminders to yourself until, I guess, we really become the Buddha. Then we're always coming from that place. But for most of us, even holy people, it takes reminders constantly to be the kindness that we seek in the world. And this is one of the stories from the trip. We visited Melrose Abbey. Melrose Abbey is one of the most beautiful preserved abbeys in the borders of Scotland, kind of in the south of Scotland. And there's stories about the Melrose Abbey in the 1700s. It was the home of the Cistercian monks. And the Cistercian monks, that order, was known for its very prayerful ways and its ascetic nature. I mean, they got up in the middle of the night to pray. They prayed, at specific times during the day and the 24 hours, including a time in the middle of the night. So they were always singing, chanting, praying. They did not go into the outside world that much. They were very, very prayerful. And so what happened was that the wealthy people of the court would come to the Cistercian monks and pay them for prayers because they were such good prayers. And the noble people would pay the Cistercians to pray for them to enter heaven. And because they knew that their actions did not warrant heaven, at least in their worldview. And so they paid for the prayers to be spoken. And because the monks were always praying, and they would never turn away anyone that asked for prayer, they prayed. And then the people who had paid the money felt better and told their friends about it, and so other wealthy people asked the Cistercian monks to pray for them. And so over the years, it turned out that these prayerful, ascetic monks got very, very wealthy. And they succumbed to some of the things that happens to wealthy people. And there came a time a couple hundred years down the line when there was this big meeting that says, you know, these are our principles, and this is what is happening. And so I don't know what happened because, you know, Henry VIII came along and destroyed all the abbeys. So I don't know the end to that story, except that it's a really good reminder to us, not that money is bad, because there is much, much, much good that is done with money. But the lesson is to be true to ourselves and to actually do the good that is ours to do and not refrain from that and not try to shift it and do something else and forget the good that is ours to do. In other words, to be consistent with our own soul's path. And so for the world to be better because of you, you consistently move into that consciousness state, the speech and the action that follows the spiritual principles that you believe in. Next, we become a force for good, and people are happier because of you. So one of the things that happens with me when I travel is that I do get jet lag for several days. And so one of the things that I notice about me is that I can get snappy and crabby when I'm in jet lag. Never at any other time. So whenever I travel, I know that I'm going to have to ask for things all the time because I'm traveling in a foreign country that I'm not familiar with. And I also know, looking over some of the journal entries from previous trips, is that I can get crabby if I'm not rested. So before any trip, I write my intentions, what I want to accomplish on that trip. And for the first time, I wrote, I stay well rested and eat well so that my mood is loving and kind towards everyone. And it worked, but it worked because I put my attention to it. And I think that many people were happier because of me. No. So one of the things that happened was, you saw this on Facebook, if you're on Facebook. I was in this grocery store in kind of a village. I mean, it was a big grocery store for a village, but still, it was a grocery store not in a metropolitan area. And so I had gotten a few little things that I wanted to eat, and I was with a friend, and at the cash register, I said, do we have blah, blah, blah in the room? And the sweet little checkout girl said, oh, you've got such a cute accent. And she was Scottish, you know, and she said that with what I thought was a cute accent. So we hugged and laughed because we each were delighted in the other's speech. And so we took a picture of that, and we were both grinning. And she said, you don't think about coming to work and hearing an accent. So it was very, very cute, very cute. So finally, the world is better because of you, and heaven is here because of you when you do good. So sometimes I think we feel that if we are striving to be this way in the world, that we end up being nicer than the world is to us. Sometimes that has that feeling that, you know, I have been consistently nice, and this guy is continuously in my face. You know, what's going on here? So I have a story for you about that, and it's about Scotch. So we did go to a couple of distilleries in Scotland, and we took the tour, and we heard the story of the angel's share. So what the angel's share is that there are, like in any creation of any alcohol, there's a mixture and a bubbling stuff, and then a straining stuff, and then addition of, you know, hops or sugar or whatever you add. And then, you know, when the stuff is kind of cooked, you put it into barrels. This happens with wine and beer, I think, and it happens with spirits. And so when you put the alcohol in the barrels, there's a date on it, and you fill it all the way up and you cork it really good. And then over time, because, you know, if any of you look at scotch or drink scotch or any kind of spirits in the grocery store, you see that there's 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 25-year-old, and it gets progressively more expensive. So 10 years' time, you open up the barrel, and the level has been reduced. Nobody has been in the barrel. But we know now, of course, that the alcohol has evaporated through the wood, and the level of the alcohol is lower than when they closed the barrel. Well, they didn't understand the evaporation back then, and they thought that actually the angels came to drink the scotch because it was so delicious. And so that's the angel's share. And the longer that the scotch is aged, the lower the level goes, because the angels have come to sip it all those years. So that's the angel's share. So there's good that disappears. You know, the scotch disappears. And sometimes the good that you think you do sort of disappears in the morass of the world. And so what if we had the idea that if we do good in the world and we think we're shortchanged, as sometimes happens, rarely, but it sometimes does happen, that we did the good for the angels, just like the angels share. We did this good for the infinite realm. And if it is not received in the human realm, oh well, it is received in the infinite realm. So that's how we can bring heaven to earth, is just not to get bothered at all by what comes to us, but to consistently give forth of the joy of our own life. So in conclusion, if I have not spoken today about the issue that you came with, because I know that this has been a jolly talk, it's been an obvious talk, do good and feel good. And if some of you have come with relationship pain or financial lack or health concerns, doing good helps every situation that hurts. Doing good helps every single situation. I remember the first time that I was getting ready to have my first child, and I read everything that I could get my hands on about giving birth because I had no idea what I was in for. And one of the books I read said, you know, when you're the most uncomfortable, give your husband or your coach some love. And I thought, well, is that not remarkable? That in the throes of childbirth, I'm supposed to turn to him and say, I love you, honey. And blessed be, I did remember it. And it worked. It made me feel better. So whatever is hurting, if you do good, that will be helped. So, going deeper. For those of you that want a deeper talk, a deeper message, this is it. This is a statement from the book, I Become a Spectacle of Virtue. Not that we want to show off our goodness, but don't you know some people that are so good and so generous and so kind that you could say, yep, that one, there is a spectacle of virtue. Yeah, I see some nods. And you know, we have some in this very room. We know who they are. So, with that, I'm going to go into the inner work. Thank you very much. It's good to be home. So as we turn within, and with all of the circumstances that are in your life right now, all of the people that you will see later today, just think of the rest of your day. And think of a kindness that you can do today. Plan it right now. I've got a meeting, and then I've got another meeting, and whatever it is for you, think of a kindness that you can and will do. And put that kindness idea, your plan, into a kindness basket that appears on your lap right now. Just put that plan in your kindness basket. And then if there is any consternation in your heart, any confusion, sadness, emotional frailty, or if there is some aspect of your life that is causing you discomfort in any way, without judging that at all, put that also in the kindness basket. Kind of put that in the bottom of the basket. And put your kindness plan on top of that. And know that just as love is the universal healer, that kindness is a very real aspect of love. And that as you give forth of that kindness that is naturally and continuously pouring from your heart into ideas of doing good, and then actually doing that good, that every single thing in your life is healed into wholeness through kindness. Blessed be.